Namaste and happy Sunday, everybody. My name is KJ Hamus, and welcome to our Sunday evening yin practice. So, for tonight's practice, just make sure you have what's going to help you be most comfortable: blocks, a pillow, and a blanket. You may use them, you may not. It's totally up to you. Just decide what works best for you. With that said, we're just going to start to jump right in. And with that, I invite you to find a very comfortable position for you. So, seated, maybe crisscross applesauce, could be on your back, could be on your belly, could be on your side, could be legs up the wall, whatever is going to feel best for you tonight in your body. And so, finding that space can also start to give us an indication of how we're feeling tonight and what we're bringing with us into the practice. So as you find your comfortable space and get situated in there, I'm going to go ahead and ring the bell to invite us in. Starting to draw our awareness to our low belly and the movement of the breath in our body without changing, without judging our breath, without judging how we're showing up tonight. Start to notice the gentle rise of the inhale and the gentle fall of the exhale. Observe the movement of the breath in the body as if it's water. So feeling the breath enter in through the nose and move and spread. And then as you exhale, feeling the water, the breath leave the nose. Just observe what the breath is telling you tonight. So our breath can really tell us a lot. If it's hard to take our breath with a lot of control and focus, maybe we're carrying a lot of anxiety with us or a lot of stress. If the breath is moving natural and slow, that could be an indication of a place of more relaxation. One is not better than the other. One is not more correct than the other. We just want to observe and notice, because as a reminder, we show up every time differently to our practice. As the breath continues to move, begin to notice the transition of the breath from inhale and exhale. So the in-between, how is it moving? What are the qualities of your breath? Where does it seem to get stuck or feel more stopped? Where is the breath flowing a bit more freely? And we'll begin to transition our awareness, feeling the weight of our body on the mat. Beginning to notice the temperature of the room and how that feels on your skin. So again, as we move into that different place of transition, what is happening physically in the body? Without judgment, just an observation. Do you notice areas where you're holding a lot of tension? There's a lot of just extra stuff. There's maybe tightness. Can you observe the areas that seem a little bit more loose? maybe that aren't holding that same amount of tension or any tension at all. It's okay to hold them in the exact same time in the body. Well, what do you notice? And then there are many different layers to the body, so we'll begin to transition to drawing our focus to our heart space. And noticing here what is coming up emotionally. So let this be a time to be honest with yourself about how you're truly feeling. Maybe there's 2 or 3 words to describe what you're bringing with you onto the mat. And these words can be a complete opposite of each other. So you can be happy and sad at the same time in your body and in this moment. You can be happy, sad, scared, happy, sad, excited, all at once. And so if whatever you're feeling, let that be here and even start to incorporate those feelings and notice how they're manifesting through the breath and through the physicality of the body. And then as you're ready to complete this initial journey, we'll start to draw the focus and transition to the space between the eyes, our third eye center, and check in with the mind. So a lot of things can be happening with the mind. Remember that the heart is the queen of the body, the governess of all of our systems, but it communicates heavily with the mind. So what's taking place there? Is it a cacophony of sounds and thoughts and maybe worry or excitement? Or does everything seem to be moving and floating on a cloud or somewhere in between? And there's no right or wrong answer. So I begin to notice and observe. And to help us soothe the mind and to complete the transition between mind, body, and breath. If it feels comfortable to you, I invite you to start to begin to breathe up and down the length of the body. Taking a deep diaphragmatic breath. Feeling the breath expand the entire torso all the way down to your root, connecting to the crown of your head. Just noticing any changes in the body that come up if you've taken this path. With any breathing technique at any point, if it starts to amplify a feeling that isn't great for you, or it starts to just make your space uneasy or uncomfortable, suspend the practice and just observe the breath as it moves naturally in and out through the nose. There's no technique here to master. This is why we call it practice, not perfect. So do what feels best and most comfortable for you this evening. So if you're staying with a natural breath, continue to stay there. Notice it, observe it. And if you're taking a more diaphragmatic breath, I'm going to invite you to begin to breathe in from the root, so the base of the spine. And as you breathe in, feel the breath travel up the spine. So past the belly button, through the sternum and the jugular knot, through the third eye center to the middle of the brain. And then as you breathe out in that same controlled fashion, you're going to start to have the breath travel down the back side of the spine. So through the cervical spine, down the mid-back, all the way through the lumbar spine, the pelvis, back to where it started at the root, to create an orbit here. For me personally, when I think of this breath, I actually do think of almost like space and a planet orbiting the sun. It can be your favorite planet. It can be Saturn, Mars, Pluto, which I still think is a planet. That's a whole other debate. But just starting to feel that breath. So noticing and observing the breath as it travels from the root on the inhale up through the midline. And then as you exhale, feel it travel down the back side of the body. Continuing to breathe here, slow and controlled and steady. I know when I say controlled, you're like, oh, I must control it. Let it happen as natural as possible. But if you want to find a bit more of a calming effect, have the breath last longer on the exhale. That's where the controlled part can come in. And observe the transition between inhale and exhale and inhale. And observe the transitions that are taking place in the body, in the emotions, and in the mind. We'll be here for about another minute or so, and this may be a time for you to set your intention or focus for your practice. Slowly letting the breath return to its natural rhythm. We'll come back to this breath as an option as we move throughout our practice. But as you're ready, return the breath to its natural rhythm. And then begin to slowly transition just up to a comfortable seat, making sure your blocks, at least one, if not two, are available to you. Take your time as you find this place of transition and notice what happens in the transition, what calls to you. And we'll just pause here for a moment in the comfortable seat to maybe take a look around the room, notice 5 different objects to recenter yourself, and just observe how movement from maybe lying down to sitting up feels, or if you're already sitting up, just noticing a bit more what happened after the breath and after you took time to observe what you're bringing into your practice. And as you're ready, we're going to come into our first shape. We're going to come into our Malasana Yogi squat, and this is where the blocks can come in real handy. So we can start on 2 blocks, placing them underneath our seat and bringing our knees out wide. So feel free to start here. I don't necessarily recommend going up in blocks because we do want our feet to be on the ground, but if you need a little bit more height, feel free to add in a couple more layers, but do try and keep your feet on the ground. If you get to the point where you're basically standing, let go of some of those blocks. So you can stay here, you can come down to 1 block, or you can completely get rid of the blocks altogether. Just to give you a preview, we are going to come into this shape about 3 or 4 times throughout the practice, not all at once. So you might want to start a little bit taller and then allow yourself to work down to transition to something lower. So as we breathe here, we'll be here for 1.5 minutes this first time. I'm going to invite you to notice the areas of tension in the body. So where are you holding the most tension in this shape? You may be feeling it in the hip joint where the femur bone meets the hip socket. You could even be feeling it in the feet or in the back if it's rounded. So just take that moment to notice that, make that observation. Then I'm going to invite you to draw your attention to a spot that's not holding any tension. So this can be your pinky finger, this can be the tip of your nose or the sides of your eyes. And this technique was taught to me by one of my teachers, Abigail. And so we'll just draw our awareness, draw our focus there. With any focus, or drishti, as we would say in Sanskrit, we're going to send our energy to that spot. And it can help us stay in the moment and concentrate on the benefits that are potentially coming out. Now, this shape can be really challenging. So even if you're concentrating on your pinky finger and you're just like, my hips, that's totally fine. Come out of it if you need to. Like I said, we'll be in it a bit more. No reason to stress about the shape. We're almost there. So physically, we're strengthening the ankles and we're starting to open up the hips here. Take one more full breath in and out. Beautiful, everybody. As you're ready, just bring your hands down to the ground and we're going to slowly start to transition to a standing forward fold or dangling pose, as we would call it in yin. This might be a great place to have your blocks with you as well. As you can rest your hands here, go with the natural bend in the knees this evening. So if there's like a deep bend and your heart is resting on your thighs, awesome. Stick with that. Do see if you can let the head hang heavy and maybe even let the back round a bit more. So just as we did with our squat position, we'll be in our dangling pose for about 1.5 minutes, and we'll slowly progress into more time with each of those shapes as the practice moves on. So here physically, we're starting to open up the back side of the body, letting the spine release, maybe even letting the neck release if we've been doing a lot of holding up of the head. So take a moment to notice where you're holding the most tension in the body. And then after you've made that observation, start to notice where you're holding the least amount of tension. And still continue to just find a gentle breath. Might be a little harder to breathe because we are compressing the diaphragm, but that can actually be really good for the diaphragm in some ways as we're breathing and forcing the muscle to work. We'll take one more full breath here. And full breath out. Just gently move your props off to the side and slowly roll up one vertebra at a time. The camera's going to cut my head off. That's all right. I'm still here. And then as you come to your standing position, just notice anything that's come out of the transition from that shape. And then taking your time, you're going to slowly come back down to the ground. So I bring you up just to bring you right back down. But make sure that you don't, go splat on the ground. We'll come into our butterfly pose next, bringing the soles of the feet to touch. So both shapes may have indicated you're like, oh, I'm feeling a bit more in my hamstrings and my hips or even in my low back. And there's a couple of great ways to really help us in this shape release that. For the back, you may want to bring your feet out a bit more, even placing blocks underneath there if you'd like. Let your back round as you fold. So really thinking about that forward tilt of our pelvis, our anterior tilt. You may want to sit up on a block or a blanket. If you need a little bit more of opening in the inside of the legs, consider bringing your feet in closer to the body. And it's going to be up to the individual whether a flat back helps you accomplish that stretch or a more rounded back does. It's up to you. And this can also be a great place for a block or a blanket, something to rest your forearms on or something to rest your head on. We're going to be in this shape for about 5 minutes here. And take the time to gently ease and transition into deeper variations of the shape. So even as you get into it, you're like, oh, I'm going to start out really deep. That could be too much. So come out of it and take it a little bit less. And then maybe the body will open up a bit more where you can ease into it. We're in no rush. We got time. You may not even get to a deeper level tonight because you're like, I'm just going to ooze here. So find that place where you can ooze. Be there. As you settle in here, whatever variation you've taken that suits you best tonight, I'm going to invite you to bring your focus once again back to your breath. Feel free to stay with your natural breath if that's working for you, if it's calling to you, if it's providing you with what you need. You can take a diaphragmatic breath, just breathing in and out through the nose, up and down the length of the body. Or I invite you to come back to your orbital breath if that was calling to you. As we breathe up and down our central channel in the body, the central channel physically and the central channel energetically, start to notice what happens in the shape. What happens physically, emotionally, and mentally. Lots of checking back in. And as time progresses in the shape, you might be aware of subtle transitions in the body. What happens in those moments? I'm going to be silent now and let you just explore the shape in your body. As you're ready, on your own breath, slowly begin to transition out of this shape and listen to what your body needs here. So today could be the day where you're like, I could not wait to get out of that shape. It did not happen fast enough. If the body is calling for a bunch of movement, take 30 seconds to a minute. Maybe take a down dog, pedal at the feet, do whatever you need. Or maybe today you're on the opposite end of that and you're like, I'm a stillness ninja and I just want to be right here in that moment. It's totally fine. Some days we can be in the middle with some shapes. It could be one shape or the other, could be the whole thing. And we're not going to fight against it. I'm going to recommend that you don't fight against it. So that's your body trying to tell you something. What that is, I don't know, but that's something for you to start to explore and figure out and just listen to and notice and just remember one is not better than the other. It's all a process. But whenever you're ready, take your time taking as much movement as you need or as little movement as you need or as much stillness as you want. We'll find our way back to our seat. We'll start to come into our straddle pose. So with that, we'll open the legs out as wide as they want to go. And again, it could be very small V. It could be a wider V. It's totally, again, whatever you need. I'm going to keep saying that the whole practice. Whatever you need, do that. We're focusing on the inside of the legs. So another part of the hip and the knee most likely. And again, you might get a good stretch in the back too. Up to you. Stay here, fold forward if you'd like, at whatever level feels good. I sometimes use my feet as an indication about how much effort I'm putting in. So if I go really far and my feet are having to grip and I'm holding on for dear life with my feet, maybe I've gone too far and I need to back out of it a little bit. You may also find that the stretch in the knees too much. So a block or blankets or even a slight bend in the knees without that support can help. And then as we progress in the shape, you can release that down. You can always put our two blocks right here in front of each other. And then use your blanket or your pillow or some combination of all of that to rest. It's okay if the feet curl in. It's okay if they curl out. Don't force anything which way or the other. And we'll breathe here. Find the breathing technique that works for you. If you're settling a bit more into the practice, this might be a time where you take a little bit longer time on your exhale. Okay? And with that, if you're holding a lot of tension, I'm going to invite you to notice where your tongue is at in this moment. So if it's attached to the roof of the mouth or the top row of the teeth, consider bringing the tongue down behind the bottom row of teeth and let it sit there and let a bit of saliva pool around it. So what do you notice about what's happening in the body when you make that transition with the tongue or when you make that transition with the breath? Got about another 4 minutes here. I'm going to let you be just to explore the shape in your body. If you're finding the silence to be too much, maybe put on a little background music for yourself, something light and soothing for you that can help. And sometimes even that little bit of music can help give the brain something to focus on so you can breathe without having to grasp the thoughts. And as you're ready in your time, slowly transition back up and taking whatever comes to you in this moment. So movement, stillness, whatever you need. We'll have about 30 seconds or so to do so, but you can always take longer if you'd like. And then we are going to transition back to our squat. So use this time to just slowly gather what props you might need. You may want to be on 2 blocks. You may decide to start on 1 or go back to none. Totally up to you. Then as you're ready, let's find our squatting position. So everybody's going to be a little bit different with their squat. It's okay to let the back round here. That might feel good. It's okay to sit up a little taller. As we're here for 2 minutes, we've been here for about 15 seconds so far, just start to explore where the weight is in your feet. How does it feel to have the weight a bit more onto the big toe mounds and the inside of the feet? And then how does it feel to bring it back and bring more weight to the outer edges of the feet? And can you see about finding a happy medium in the body? Hands can be in prayer position if you'd like. Hands can even be on the ground. There can be something really nice and stabilizing about finding the connection with the earth with our hands. And feeling the energy from the earth travel through the body. Doing great. Keep breathing. Coming out if you need to, as much as you need to. We've got about another 45 seconds left here. You got this. And then as you're ready, slowly begin to transition up to our dangling pose. Take your time, maybe moving back and forth as you come up, or finding that slow unwind. The transitions are just as important as the shapes, because they can tell us a lot about what we learned on the shapes. So feel free to, once again, bring blocks underneath the hands. Hands can go on the ground. Hands can even come to opposite elbows, and then have the forearms rest on the thighs, bringing the heart to rest on the forearms. Work with the natural bend in your knees. Let the back try and round the neck, release as much as you can. So we've got about 2 minutes here. And then as you're ready, begin to transition up to a standing position. Take your time, utilizing the whole transition. So we're easing the body out of the shape just as we ease the body into the shape. And then taking any movement that you need before finding your way down to your knees. So take about 30 seconds or longer if you need longer. No rush. Then as you come to your knees, we're going to come into our child's pose with a twist in the upper body, just to target the upper back and help us open up the shoulders ever so slightly. So this might be a great place to put your blanket underneath your knees. And depending on the range of motion and mobility in the hips tonight, you may even consider placing your pillow underneath the seat and the ankles, just to provide a little extra comfort and bring both parts closer together. It's totally up to you. So for here, knees can stay underneath the body, or knees can go as wide as the mat. Somewhere in between is always an option as well. You can just take a regular child's pose. Arms can be out nice and long if you'd like. Or if you'd like to take our other variation, we'll start by bringing our right hand underneath the left. We'll just keep our left arm out long today, or use it as a pillow. Let the head, I'm letting my right ear fall down. That might feel really good to you. It might feel better to keep your forehead on the ground, up to you. We're going to be in about 3 minutes on each side for a total of 6 minutes. Taking off my glasses just because they're interfering with my head resting. If you find it's really uncomfortable to bring your head down to the ground, consider a block or a blanket or a pillow if you're not using them elsewhere underneath the head. It can help keep the spine completely in line with the neck, and that might feel a little bit better. As you're ready, slowly unwind. Maybe you take a moment here to just pull yourself up. Take any movements that call to you. Notice any differences between the two sides. I'm just going to switch myself around, not for any particular reason, just so that I can really watch the clock. That's it. And then as you're ready, we're going to come into our other side. No rush. This time, left hand will come underneath the right. for 3 minutes. And if you're ready, you can just slowly transition out of the shape. Maybe coming to just a regular traditional child's pose or a tabletop downward facing dog, inviting any movement that calls to you here. And then as you're ready, slowly start to work your way back to your squat position. We've got that whole little big sequence, just one more time, squat and dangling pose this evening. So feel free to use as many blocks as you need when you get there. Start off in our squat. Breathing here, you've got this. We're gonna be here for a total of 3 minutes this time. Don't let that number freak you out. It's just a number. There's nothing you need to master here. There's nothing you need to overcome. The only thing we want to focus on is how we're feeling in each moment. Maybe drawing our awareness to our breath or that place that's holding less tension. Seeing if we can just ease into the body a little bit more. Knowing that at any point, if you need to come out of the shape, that is totally fine. Do that. Probably the last time you're going to hear me say that, but hopefully you've got that. And as you're ready, no rush. Take your transition. Try and take it as slow as you can, easing your body out of the squat, coming into your dangling pose. Final shape of the class using blocks for hands, letting the hands just kind of fall. See if you can let the shoulders fall naturally for this last time. Not holding the shoulders up or holding the neck up. Noticing any differences you may be feeling in the body. And then come into this shape for the third time. As you're ready, slowly take your transition and easing out of your shape. Rolling the body up, trying to avoid the head rush. And then take any movements that call to you. And then as you're ready, we're going to begin to come into Savasana, final resting pose. You don't want to skip this. This is good stuff. This final resting pose. You might be like, I'm not doing anything except just lying there. Exactly. You're not supposed to be doing anything else. Let this be a place of true rest. You have nothing else to do. So on your back, on your belly, on your side, legs up the wall. Do what feels best for you. And even after you get into this shape, take a moment to see if you can make yourself 5 to 10% more comfortable. Let focus of the breath go. Let control of the breath go. And starting from your feet or your head, whatever your preference is, begin to turn each and every muscle off in the body. Feeling the eyelids grow heavy. Letting the corners of the eyelids grow soft. The jaw starts to move away from the hinge. The roof of the mouth begins to rise. Shoulders deepen into the mat as your arms just begin to go limp. Fingers find their natural curl. Feel the ribs start to just splay open. The heart softens. Belly releases. Let each ligament along the spine release. Hips grow heavy. Legs grow soft. Back of the knees become tender. Calves, shins, let go. Ankles release. Toes and feet just flop. You are here. Begin to reawaken your body. Slowly invite movement into fingers and toes. Depending on where you're at, maybe you rock your head from side to side. Roll out ankles, roll out wrists. And if you're ready, begin to just transition to a comfortable seat. Take your time to get there. When you're ready, let's take a deep, slow breath in through the nose, filling up the entire body. And then as you're ready, exhale, open mouth. Sigh it out. As we lift our hands to our heart center, we honor the stewards of the land who've come before us. So here in Washington, D.C., we're on Anacostan land. We take a moment to, most importantly, honor the roots of yoga and the indigenous teachers who've come before us. Honoring the roots of the teachers who've come from South Asia, Africa, to bring us this practice. As we bow our heads in a moment of gratitude, thank yourself for making time for your practice, time for your mat today. We take a moment to honor those who have joined us tonight to create this virtual community in this virtual space. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I hope your practice was everything you needed it to be, no matter where you're at. Yeah, and there's something that you're able to take away with you and carry through the rest of your week. Remember, your practice just doesn't start and stop on your mat, it is with you always. I look forward to practicing with you next week. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday and a fabulous week.